Hi, this is Ryan. I've just finished a new video. I'm really excited about it. It's Jerusalem's Old City, just in time for Easter. The access is pretty good. Don't forget to comment, subscribe. Let's take a look. Hi, this is Ryan from Freewheel Weekends, and welcome to Jerusalem.
The Old City consists of the Christian quarter, the Armenian quarter, the Jewish quarter and the Muslim quarter. Now, you can roll from one to another, and you will want to do this because each area has its own kind of personality and places of interest. We arrived at Jaffa Gate in the early afternoon. It was relatively accessible, pretty flat. It was a little bit busy though. We followed the throngs of people down David Street, only to find this was not at all wheelchair friendly. Getting ourselves out of there, we started up towards the Tower of David. This route is a little bit steep to begin with, but it did give us a good look at the Tower of David, and later on we would come back here to check out their light show at night. Most of the Tower of David is accessible, and there's a little museum here too. Check out the details online. This route took us through the Armenian quarter. It is a functioning road, so look out for the traffic, and eventually it brought us around to the Jewish quarter. It was around here that we started to see these little brown tiles that apparently indicated an accessible trail. We found ourselves in a piazza near a synagogue where we took a bit of time and had something to eat. All of the paved paths use the same stone, which is kind of polished and can be a little bit slippery, but generally easy to get across. At this point we were actually outside the Old City, but we were finding our way down and around to Dung Gate. This gate is a little bit steep, but there is a drop-off point, and it does give you great access to the Dome of the Rock and to the Western Wall. We visited the Western Wall a couple of times. Both times it was open. You do need to practice a little bit of modesty, and on Fridays, on Shabbat, there's no photography. Men and women worship at different places along the wall, and both of them are accessible. You can borrow the traditional headdress, which is the kippah, and get up close to the wall. The Dome of the Rock is the gold-topped mosque that sits within Temple Mount in the Muslim quarter. Now, it's only open at particular times and on particular days, so do a bit of planning before you visit. There aren't any signs to indicate it, but if you head north, there's a ramp that'll take you up close to the dome. The paths here won't allow you to roll onto the grass, but they are pretty flat. Unless you're Muslim, you won't be allowed in the dome itself, but it's pretty special to get up close to this building nevertheless. Try not to waste too much time here. We were told that it was closing before we had a chance to have a good look around. We left via a doorway in the north, which is actually a really good spot to begin the Via Dolorosa. The Way of Suffering, or the Via Dolorosa, is a path through the Old City that traces Christ's steps from his condemnation through to his crucifixion. There are 14 points or stations along this path. Now, not all of them are accessible, but a lot of them are. The second station has 2 churches, and it's very wheelchair friendly. The well-worn path to take in all of the stations on the Via Dolorosa is not 100% wheelchair accessible, so we took in the first few stations and then took a different route which would take us to the final stations, which are at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. If you want to start the day doing this path, then it's best to get dropped off at Lions Gate, which is accessible. Getting to the final church on the Via Dolorosa meant we took a bit of a detour. This pathway was accessible, but some of the ramps were pretty steep, so we did enlist the help of a friendly local. We got some help with this ramp and also with the step at the church entrance. This church is the end of the Via Dolorosa. It contains the place where Jesus was crucified and also where he rose from the dead 3 days later. With the exception of the Calvary upstairs and Jesus' final resting place, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is very accessible given that it's thousands of years old. There's the occasional small step, but most people will be willing to help you out with that. Over many hundreds of years, parts of this church have been destroyed and rebuilt, and it really adds to the character here. You can see the different layers of history, and add to that the religious significance of this place, and a visit here is not easily forgotten. We weren't really sure what to expect from the Old City, but it turns out amongst these hugely iconic and symbolic places of worship are people just going about their daily lives. There are kids going to school, there's people tending their businesses, you can buy a mobile phone cover or some toothpaste. It was really unexpected to see this kind of blend of humanity and religion. You don't have to be religious to enjoy the Old City. Come and check it out. You'll just be in awe of this incredible spectacle.